Hello everyone and welcome back to another DC Universe miniature game battle report, and today for you a Justice League Dark themed team is going up against a fairly eclectic mix of various villains from the DC Universe. And a quick note before getting started, usually we've been playing 50 power levels because that was what was recommended in the old rules. Happened to be flicking through the new hardback rules that came out a year or so ago, and I didn't realise, but they actually upped the minimum recommendation of number of levels to play to 60. And I guess they did that because there are so many characters now that are like 10 plus levels on their own, to try and make it so you can still have at least a 4-person team. So from this battle report onwards, we are going to be playing 60 levels as is recommended in the hardback rulebook, not the 50 we've been playing until this point. And with that said, let's take a look at the teams. So here is our Justice League Dark themed team that's going to be taking to the field today. We have Jason Blood, who will be becoming the demon Etrigan as soon as he drops below the grey part of his health bar. We have Zatanna, we have Black Orchid, we have Deadman, who has the ability to possess someone, which will be very potent if he does manage to get through to one of the enemy team here. I think it's a willpower roll and they're all quite willful, so we'll see how that goes. And then Swamp Thing, and he'll be starting anywhere he chooses on the board because he has Infiltrator. So like I said at the top of the video, there's really no theme here with the villains today, other than they're all very dangerous. So we have Mongol, we have, I was going to say Darkseid there, nope, we have Doomsday, we have the old Zod miniature, not the new one, although the stat card for the new one is actually finally available, thankfully. So hopefully we'll see that relatively soon. And then to fill out the rest of the 60 points, Cheap and Cheerful, the classic Deadshot that isn't usable in the Batman miniature game anymore technically, because he's been made into an Eternal in that. But he's still perfectly usable in this one, and can put out okay damage, as long as nobody gets into base to base with him. So we are all set up and good to go for Scenario 3 from the hardback rulebook, which is... it's the Call for Help one, but it's not called Call for Help, it's called like Secure the City or something like that. But the goal is, you have to get into the opposing half of your opponent's side of the table. You do a willpower roll to put down a Call for Help marker. You can also do, I think it's an agility roll. It's something weird to remove an enemy one if you want. At the end of each round, you get 1 victory point for each Call for Help marker you've placed. If you have majority, you score 1 extra victory point, and if you incapacitate anyone, you also get 1 victory point. And you can only put down 1 successfully per turn, and it costs 1 power to attempt it, but you can attempt as many times as you're willing. So that's worth pointing out. The deployment zones for this one are 10 by 10 sections on each side, so that's the 2 chunks for the villains over there, and you have to put at least 1 person in each. Doomsday does not deploy in Battle Round 1. He can appear wherever he likes from Battle Round 2 onwards, so he's not on the table right now, so there's just 3 villains. We've got Jason Blood and Zatanna over there in that kind of like 10 by 10 section. Deadman is here, but Swamp Thing and I didn't realise Black Orchid also has Infiltrator, so they have infiltrated slightly forwards there. So the goal isn't necessarily to murder each other, it's to go put down as many Call for Help markers as you can. The last thing to do is to see who gets first activation in Battle Round 1, assuming they want it. There's no masterminds or anything like that, so it's just straight up 50-50 chance at the start of the game here, and it is going to be the villains who are taking first activation. So Mongol got the game started for the villains, and remember his card appears to have some kind of error on it because he has the fly roll but no fly distance. So he spent 2 to move his medium distance, and he moved to the far side of the truck here, which just crosses the 18-inch middle of the board line. He paid 1 power to do a willpower roll, he passed it, so he has put down a Call for Help marker. So it's going to be dark blue for the villains and light blue for the heroes. I apologise for the beeping outside. Let's see. Oh, also it's a stamina roll? Yeah, I think it's a stamina roll to remove them. He paid 3 to pick up the truck here, size 4. Chucked it at Swamp Thing and Black Orchid, split the damage evenly between them. They both failed their agility rolls, so they both took 2 damage. He then spent 3 on a chest cannon. He fired that at Swamp Thing and rolled double 1s, so that was a very easy miss. He could have overloaded it if he spent his last power, but he held on to that for defensive purposes. First activation for Justice League Dark was Swamp Thing. He paid 1 to move 5 inches to move next to Mongol. He did a overloaded throw attempt on him, he got it, and chucked him into the wall here. He's strength 5, so it would do 4 damage, but Mongol has physical resistance 1, so it got reduced to 3. He then paid 1 power to do a willpower roll to try and put down a marker, and succeeded, so that's 1 Call for Help marker for the good guys. And then, because he has nothing to fear from Mongol, because he's already activated this turn, he spent his last power on an overloaded Magic Spikes, which is a ranged attack, and it did 3 damage, but also got the crit. It's a Mystic type as well, so no defense buff against it. So he actually did 4, so quite a hefty bit of damage done there. General Zod activated next for the villains, and he spent 3 to fly up to 15, so he soared down the table, crash landed right there, paid 3 to pick up the Batmobile, and he chucked it at Orchid. Now, worth mentioning, Orchid has a rule where if she hasn't activated in the turn yet, you have to pass a willpower roll before attacking her. He then went on to eye laser her, and he did do a willpower roll for that. A little unclear with the wording on it whether or not you have to do that if something is being thrown at her, because she's technically not the target of the attack. The attack itself is paying power to pick up a thing and then throw it. So it's a little vague with the wording, because it says when targeted by an attack. But either way, the whole might of the Batmobile smacking into Orchid did 4 damage, and then his eye lasers did 2. He banked 1 power for defense. She does not have a lot of health. She does have regeneration 1, but yeah, she is into her pill zone now. So Orchid activated and decided it was better to ignore Zod for now, so she moved 1, or spent 1 to move 5 inches, which is her base move, to where you can see her. She wanted to put down a power counter and did eventually succeed. It took 3 attempts to pass a willpower roll. It is not her day, so that left her with 2 power all said and done, which is not enough to do anything. So she's banking the 2 power for defense. She can't attack Mongol or anything like that, but at least she got a call for help counter down eventually, but it took way too many tries. Last activation in Battle Round 1 for the villains, because Doomsday isn't on the table. Deadshot spent 1 to move to the edge of that container there. Ironically, last Batman Battle Report, the Back to Gotham Deadshot did the exact same thing. So this Deadshot, he moved up there, then he spent 4 up to 5 because he overloaded it to do his once per game Deadshot. It's called Deadshot. 18-inch range, he shot down the field at Orchid. He did pass his willpower roll to be able to target her, and the damage die has been moved. He did hit through to her for 4 damage, which is... she's 1 above her blue zone. 1 more damage will put her in her blue zone. She is hurting real bad, but he didn't have enough power to do anything else. So just 3 Justice League Dark activations to go to end off Battle Round 1. Forgot to mention incidentally, but Deadshot would have missed had he not been a shooter. He has the roll shooter, which lets him reroll a die on ranged attacks. That's what managed to get through. And Orchid did try and buff her physical defense, but it wasn't enough. Just forgot to mention that, just in case you saw that she had 1 power instead of 2. Just covering that's why. Anyway, Deadman activated. He spent 3 to fly down into the street down here. He doesn't have enough, if he moves maximum distance, to try his possession, unfortunately. So instead he was like, oh, I'll just put down a power counter, or a call for help counter, rather. He had 5 power left over. He failed his willpower test 5 times in a row. I am not joking. He spent every single power he had and failed every single one. Jason Blood activated next, and just because he's not the Demon Etrigan yet does not mean he should be underestimated. He has 11 power when he's healthy anyway. It goes down to 10 if he's not. He spent 2 to move 8, I think it was, his maximum distance, into the street there. Not good enough to put down a counter because he's still in his own table half. So he spent a total of 9 power on 3 overloaded Eldritch Bolts, which count as a physical attack, but they're range 9 because the game is a little bit weird. Like, there are physical attacks which are ranged, but they don't count as ranged. So he did 3 of those. It's magic, so Kryptonians are not good against magic, and all 3 hit through on Zod. It normally does 2 damage, but the third one also got a crit, so that's an amazing 7 damage. He didn't bank any power for defense because he doesn't need to, and he didn't put down any counters, but that's fine because he hurt Kryptonian real bad. Final activation for Battle Round 1 was Zatanna. She flew forwards 10 inches, not enough to put down a call for help token, so she spent 3 up to 4 on an overloaded once per turn lightning, and she shot that, it's magic, into General Zod. And not only did it get through his defences, she is also allowed to use her willpower once per turn as opposed to her attack stat. She did that just to guarantee. And it got through, and it critted, so instead of 3 damage, it did 4. General Zod is really hurting. It is not a good mix when magic users are attacking Kryptonians. But unfortunately, because lightning is only 1 per turn, she didn't have anything else she wanted to do with her power. So she's banking 5 power, but it was an effective Battle Round 1 for Justice League Dark. And it's just as well it was, because at the start of turn 2, Doomsday is here. So then about round 1 here is how things stand. Justice League Dark put down 2 call for help markers, 1 here, 1 here. It would have been 3 had Deadman not failed as miserably as he did, but that still gives him 2 victory points plus 1 extra victory point for having the majority, since the villains only put down they only tried to put down 1 and they succeeded, but that's 2 to 1, meaning that as we go into battle round 2 it is 3-1 to the heroes. We'll get all the new power counters set up, show where Doomsday is, and then draw from the bag. So this is the board state at the top of turn 2. However, I did forget to mention Black Orchid has regenerated 1 health. Swamp Thing actually has regeneration 2, so he is back to full health. Now everyone has their power back to full, as noted by the D12s next to them all, and Doomsday has arrived smack dab in the middle of the field, able to go after whoever he chooses, and also in the enemy half, so he can put down a call for help marker if he wanted to. So it's going to be less likely the villains take this activation since they got first turn, but not impossible. There's still 2 of their counters to the Justice League Dark's 3, so shake the bag, and it's going to be... It is actually the villains going first again in battle round 2, which is just as well for them, because if Justice League Dark had went first, Deadman would have tried to take control of Doomsday. So perhaps unsurprisingly, Doomsday got battle round 2 started. He tried to put down a call for help marker, and rather frustratingly it took 4 attempts to succeed. After that he moved with 1 power for 5 inches in between Deadman and Black Orchid, and he only had enough power left to just do Bone Shaker, which is a 2-inch aura around him. Hits everybody, they have to do an agility test or take 4 damage, stun 2. Black Orchid passed, so she only took 2 damage and does not take the stun. She, with that damage, got put down into her blue zone though, but she passed her stamina roll to stay conscious. So she's on her feet, just barely. Now Deadman, left it at 4 for now just for the explanation, he got fully hit by it, he whiffed his agility roll, so 4 damage and stun 2, which drains off 2 power from him, which might be significant because he needs 6 to do possession. I think possession is a very limited range, and Doomsday is obviously activated already, so I don't think you're allowed to activate with someone who's activated. Might have to reread the roll a few times. But more importantly though, he did take full damage, etc. However, Deadman is already dead, so he's very hard to kill. He has physical resistance 3, so that 4 damage was actually 1 damage. So, you know, and all said and done, Doomsday banked 1 power. So first up in battle round 2 for Justice League Dark was Deadman. He just stood there, spent the 6 power he had on possession. It's a 2-inch range. He tried it on Doomsday, and as far as I can tell you can do it this way because it doesn't say anything about being limited to just being used in the 1 round. I'm going to read you the text. Target the enemy model, it must make a willpower roll with a -1 penalty. It was that -1 that made Doomsday fail it, because he's not got great willpower, it's only like 8 or something, so I put him at 7. If it's failed, remove Deadman from the board. Did I call him Deadpool there? Deadman from the board. The owner of this model takes control of the target model until the end of its next activation. Nothing to do with the round, just says its next activation. During this activation, you're not allowed to use any once per game abilities or passives. After its next activation, place Deadman within 4 inches of where his base will fit. So as far as, like, the way I read that, like there it is, if you want to pause and read the text yourself, the way I read that is it has nothing to do with being locked into the round in which that was used. As far as I can tell, in Battle Round 3, the Justice League will be the ones controlling Doomsday, I think. And then afterwards, Deadman gets kicked out 4 inches. It seems to be the case. If I'm wrong, by all means point it out. Zod was next to activate. He moved, he didn't fly, he just walked over here behind Black Orchid and also the call for help marker that was here. He overloaded a throw attempt, he passed his willpower roll to actually be able to target her. He picked her up, suplexed her, chucked her into there. She has no physical resistance, so she took 5 damage because it's strength -1, and that is more than enough to take out the 2 HP she had left, and that is 1 instant victory point for the villains for taking out someone on the opposing team. He then needed 2 attempts to pass another stamina roll a stamina roll to remove the power counter that had been there. So now it's 2 villain counters to 1 hero call for help icon, and he banked 1 power after all that. Zatanna activated next, and I'm very quickly realizing she is pure glass cannon. She doesn't have great defenses, and nor does she have a lot of HP, but good grief, she can put out a lot of damage. She spent 1 just to move a little bit to get within range, then she did her once per game for 5 power called Explode. Well, it's written backwards, but Explode. And presumably you're still allowed to target Doomsday because he's an enemy even though he's currently possessed by Deadman. She did that because it's a huge explosion. It's a 4-inch explosion. Wanted to catch Zod. If she targeted Zod, it would have caught Swamp Thing. But because the point of origin of the explosion is there, it only catches Zod. So, as long as you land the hit on the main target, it does full damage. It's magic element as well. 5 damage to Doomsday. Anyone caught in the blast can do an agility roll and take half damage rounding down. Zod passed his roll, so he took 2 damage. She then spent 3 power to try and fire a lightning bolt. Should have overloaded it because it failed to get through Doomsday's magic defense. Forgot to mention, but she did use her once per turn passive to use her willpower for the explosion just to make sure it landed. Deadshot was next up for the villain side. He spent 1 to move to the edge of a shipping container there, and that left him 6 power to play with. He spent 2 of that on his other once per game called Bullet Time. It reduces the frequency of his sniper rifle attack from once per turn to green, which means you can do it as many times as you want for power. It also reduces the cost of it from 2 power to 1 power. So then he unloaded 4 Barrett attacks into Zatanna, who did buff her physical defense for 1 of the 2 power she had. It was not enough. There wasn't any crits, but every single attack got through. Another siren in the background, really. It's one of those days. But that is 8 damage to Zatanna. She is 1 away from her blue zone, and she only has 4 HP left. I told you, she's a glass cannon. Jason Blood moved in over here, and he paid 1 power and got a success on it to put down a call for help marker, so that's 2 on 2 now. Then he overloaded 2 Eldritch Blasts into General Zod. Forgot his name there for a second. The second one did a crit as well, so that's 5 damage in total. He has survived on 1 HP. Now he did also pass his roll to stay conscious, but it's not looking too great for him. Magic users just rip Kryptonians apart when they don't need to worry about their physical and energy resistance. It's ridiculous. So Mongol was the final activation for the villains in Battle Round 2, and looking at his stat card, assuming the fly roll is correct, I'm not familiar with him, so I don't know if he is supposed to fly. His first 2 movement tiers are 5 and 9, which are the same as Black Orchid, so that implies if he is supposed to have fly, his fly stat would be the same, which is 10. So he spent 3 to fly the 10. Over here, he spent 3 to pick up Jason Blood. Jason Blood did not bother buffing his defense because he kind of wants to take damage. He got chucked into Zatanna. Strength -1 means he took 3 damage. Zatanna actually dodged him, so then Mongol spent the rest of his power on an overloaded chest cannon. Energy, shot into her. That did 3 damage. It left her on 1 health in her blue zone, but she failed her stay awake roll, so she is unconscious on the floor with 1 health remaining. And now it is over to Swamp Thing to end off the round. So Swamp Thing sauntered up the street a little bit for 1 power, I think it was. Behind Zod, he paid 4 to do an overloaded throw, and he rolled 3 7s. He picked Zod up and he chucked him at Mongol. Now his strength is 5, it goes down to 4. Zod resists physical 2, so all said and done, it did 2 damage to him, but if you remember, he only had 1 health, so no one's kneeling before Zod because he's dead. And Mongol took the full damage from him being chucked into him. He's size 2, but he has physical resist 1, so it only did 1 damage to Mongol. Then he had 4 power left. After all that, he spent 1 to put down a call for help marker and succeeded. And with lack of anything better to do at the end of the turn, he spent 3 on a magic spike attack because they're not in base to base, so he can do that. Shot the magic spikes into Doomsday and it actually hit him. Got through for 3 damage. So at the end of Battle Round 2, this match is proving a lot bloodier than I thought it would be. Both sides have lost someone, giving 1 victory point to the respective opposing teams. There are 2 call for help markers for the villains, and there are 3 call for help markers for the Justice League Dark. So they actually get 4 victory points because it's 3, but then they have majority for the bonus 1. So as we go into Battle Round 2 and we'll get the power set up and whatnot, Battle Round 3 rather, we're finishing Battle Round 2, I believe it's 8-4 in Justice League Dark's favour. So here's how things are looking at the top of Round 3. Everybody has their power counters. Forgot to mention again, but regen is kicked in for those who it's apt for. Doomsday's healed 1. Swamp Thing didn't need to anymore. Jason Blood eventually gets regen 2 when he's the demon, but not currently. So he's not healed at all. And Zatanna is obviously unconscious, so she's not got a power marker next to her. You can try and activate her, but if she fails a willpower roll, she'll stay down, and that uses up that activation. But we'll see if that's necessary, because things are looking good for Justice League Dark now Zod is off the table. And also Doomsday is possessed by Deadman this turn. So anyway, we have the bag. It is exceptionally likely to be the heroes activating. And it is. Justice League Dark, take first activation, finally. So as weird as it sounds, for Justice League Dark, the first activation was Doomsday, with Deadman in control. He spent one to walk next to Mongol's back. He did an overloaded big strike, which is just his basic strike. It's irresistible, so ignores resistance to physical damage. That got through on him for 3, then he overloaded a throw attempt, picked him up, and chucked him. Now that would normally do 6 down to 5, but that isn't irresistible, so his physical defensive 1, or resistance, kicks in, so that did 4. Now that did put him in his pale zone, 4 away from death. He passed the roll to stay conscious though, so he should still get a turn of some variety. And then after Doomsday activated, Deadman was kicked out within 4 inches over there. So knowing that he's not long for the world, Mongol activated and he moved next to Zatanna. He did a basic attack on her and splattered her for 2 damage, and that does take her out. So that is 1 victory point gained for the villains there. He then, for lack of anything better to do, spent 3 of his remaining power on a chest cannon burst. It hit Jason Blood in the bag. Now it has the push roll, but it doesn't say how much you're supposed to push them because there's another error on the card, so I don't know. Either way, he took 3 damage. That does put him into his pale zone though, which means that you place the demon within 4 inches, and I guess we'll just pop him right there, and then Jason Blood gets removed. Gone the form of man, rise the demon Etrigan, etc. He still takes the 3 damage, but now the demon Etrigan is there. He counts as size 3, and now you can no longer use Jason Blood's attacks, but you can use his instead, which are generally stronger. He gets like superhuman strength, he can use flame breath, and a bunch of other stuff. So the newly formed demon activated Etrigan, and he tried to do a basic demon claw swipe on Mongol, who did buff his physical defense, and actually didn't get through. So he did an overloaded throw attempt, picked Mongol up and threw him. He becomes strength 5 when he's a demon, down to 4, and then down to 3 because of resistance 1. That did 3 damage, leaving Mongol on 1 health. Chucked him into Doomsday. Doomsday actually passes his agility roll and took no damage from that. So then he did his Flame Breath, which is magical based. It's a frontal cone, and you've just got to do an agility roll to take half damage or take full damage. They both failed it, so they both took 2 damage, and that was enough that Mongol is down for another victory point, leaving only Doomsday, who's already went, and Deadshot on the table for the villains. So Deadshot hopped down off the shipping container, ran over here into the enemy half of the table, managed to do it in 1 attempt, paid 1 power to do his willpower roll, put down that call for help, which is more needed now than ever, and then because he had enough power left over, did an overloaded Barrett shot into the demon's back. Would have done 2 damage, but as the demon he now has resistance 1 to physical, so it gets reduced to 1 damage. And with that, it is over to Swamp Thing to end off battle round 3. So for Swamp Thing, it took 2 attempts to put down a call for help marker successfully, then he paid 1 to move behind Doomsday. He tried to do an overloaded throw attempt, and it failed. So then he just did an overloaded basic attack, which does 2 damage. It got through, but it gets reduced to 1 damage because of his physical resistance. And that is it for the 3rd round. So at the end of battle round 3, this is how things stand. The villains, what little there is left of them, have 3 call for help markers on the table for 3 victory points. Justice League Dark have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which means they get 5 victory points because they have majority. There was victory points gained for people getting taken out of action, Zatanna and Mongol. So as things stand going into the next battle round, I believe it's 14 playing 8. Getting fairly insurmountable at this point, but we are going to at least see part of turn 4. So top of turn 4, which will probably also be the final turn of the game. Nothing much else to say. People have been given power. The demon is down 1 power just because he had a bonus for being healthy. That's gone now. It comes straight down to the bag. It is likely to be the Justice League Dark to get it again, but let's see. Shake, 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 and it is... Oh, it's actually the villains. That might work out better for them, because again, had Justice League Dark gotten first activation, they would have immediately tried to take control of Doomsday for the turn. So knowing that the evil Deadman is just going to try and possess him, Doomsday activated, he moved behind the demon Etrigan, did an overloaded throw attempt, and succeeded. He's strength 6, so it goes down to 5 damage on Etrigan, but then he has resist 1, so it goes down to 4 damage, but that puts him 1 away from his blue zone, so he's actually getting pretty low health now. Swamp Thing failed his agility roll. He counted size 3 down to 2, I think. Well, wait, no, does that work like that? I don't remember if you -1 for the person thrown. I'll need to double check that. But either way, Swamp Thing did not dodge, so he's taking the full damage either way. One thing I've been forgetting to mention, but has been getting tracked, is that models that end their activation within 2 of Doomsday, due to his Corrosive Aura rule, take 1 true damage. It's been getting done on Swamp Thing. It did get done on Mongol once. Swamp Thing keeps on healing it back at the top of the turn, so it doesn't matter. But just so I'm mentioning on camera, it has been getting remembered, just keep forgetting to mention during the narration. Then he had 4 power left. It took him 2 attempts to put down a call for help marker. Etrigan activated and decided to run away, well, run into the enemy deployment zone, but still run away from where the enemies actually are, over here, and then it took him 3 attempts, or 2 attempts, forgotten now, to put down a call for help marker. He's banking 4 power, which means he could have gotten away with throwing a ranged attack in before moving, but could have known that ahead of time. Deadshot activated, final activation for the villains. It took him 5 attempts to get a call for help marker down, but he did eventually achieve it. He had 2 power left, which actually has spent, so the dice shouldn't be next to him. He just walked up here to get out of range because he doesn't have a lot of health. So that's him over there. He's a cheap and cheerful character. I think he's like 7 levels. So now Deadman and Swamp Thing both get to activate, and they're probably both just going to pull over to the right and put down power markers, because if they maintain the majority, they can't lose. So we can cover both those activations simultaneously. They both put down call for help markers. One took 3 attempts, one took 2, I believe. They both moved towards Doomsday. Deadman didn't do any attacks, he just moved towards him. Swamp Thing did his magical tendrils, his ranged attack. It got through with a crit for 4 damage on Doomsday. He's in no danger of dying. He's 3 away from his blue zone, and his blue zone's fairly large. I think it's got 5 HP on its own. But that does take us to the end of Battle Round 4. So both sides have a lot of call for help markers down because nobody has gone for removing them, more or less. The villains have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The heroes have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which actually gives them 8 victory points because they have majority. And if we come around here so I can see my bit of paper to remind myself of what the score is. The score, I believe, is 22 to 13? 13 or 14? Basically, the Justice League Dark are pulling ahead a little bit too much that, they went over there for a little bit of a brawl. They might be able to take down Doomsday or just possess him and then use him to go kill Deadshot. We're going to call it there because it's an insurmountable lead just based on them already being ahead, and Etrigan can just go over there and keep on putting down, because even if they put down 2, that would make it even. He would make it uneven again, and that would score the majority. So we are going to call that there. Yeah, also just double check the score, and yeah, it's 22 to 13. Interesting one. I didn't expect the Justice League Dark to do as well as they did. Of course, I was forgetting that Kryptonians in general, it's not that they have super low magic defense, it's just it's low compared to physical and energy. Even Doomsday, he's rocking 14 magic defense, which isn't great. Mongol was 14 defense. I mean, Deadshot never got shot at, but he was 14 magic defense as well. Had I realised sooner that Zatanna was just pure glass cannon, like she does ridiculous damage, it's all magic as well, which you can't buff your defense against, but she's got rubbish HP. Definitely should have sent Zod and Deadshot after her, just remove the threat from the table. Some mistakes were made. Mongol, he doesn't do that well, and the fact that his card doesn't have a fly speed listed when he has the fly roll. He has an attack that has push, but it doesn't have a push value. They messed that card up a little bit, unfortunately. It's not got any, like, the wording on it is fine, unlike something like the Cheetah card, for instance. But they clearly just didn't pay much attention to him. The best thing he's got going for him is that he makes superpowers cost more if enemies are super close to him, but it didn't really come up because there wasn't that much superpower use. It was mostly just beating each other up, and despite such very powerful enemies being on the villain's side, the heroes did better at it. They were just better at punching people this time. So we'll retire the old Zod, the old General Zod for now, and hopefully see the new one, who actually has a role called Kneel Before Zod, which is really good. He steals power from people around him, friend or foe, which is interesting. Maybe the new Black Adam as well. But that was fun as always. Didn't throw away as many things as usual, but that's okay. So thanks for watching, and until next time, ta for now.